Everyone from Las Vegas, reInvent 2022. Welcome to another episode of Cloud Talk Live. That's right, we're back up here in the executive suite. If you are watching us here live today, I'd love for you to introduce yourself. My name is Jeff DeVerter. I'm the Chief Technology Evangelist here at Rackspace Technology. And boy, I've got a great guest for you today. But before we get into that, I would love for you, like I said, to introduce yourself, whatever platform you're on. You know, the comments work. Just say hi and where you're coming in from. And any questions you have for us about reInvent, we will either answer them or make something up that sounds plausible. And so it has been an incredible week so far. What are we? We're Wednesday, I think. And it feels like 3 weeks in, but that's all right. And there's been some great announcements. Adam had his announcement yesterday. Hey, we got somebody in from far, far away, and welcome. And in fact, this morning, the keynote kicking off even right now, if you're watching us, you made a good choice to watch us instead of watching the keynote. You can watch that after. Stream it anywhere. Hey, TJ from Mexico, glad that you are here. Well, I'm joined here this morning by Leslie Lorenz. Now, Leslie is with Snowflake. She is the principal retail architect, smartest person in the world about retail over at Snowflake. So, Leslie, welcome to Cloud Talk Live.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
You bet. Now, it is 8:30 local time.
It is.
We met a half hour ago.
We super did.
And we were really excited about getting up early this morning, too, weren't we?
In Vegas, it's always fun to get up at 7 o'clock.
You know, when I come to Vegas, I get up early and run. I didn't this morning because it was in the 30s. But I'll get up to run, and I always say there's one of three things you'll see early morning. You'll see people stumbling out of a casino, still finishing their night. You will see people coming out with their coffee, starting their day, or you will see people out with a hose spraying off whatever happened the night before.
Saw all of those things this morning.
All of those things. So thank you so much for getting up and being here.
Yeah. Thank you for having me.
So Leslie, what is it you do over at Snowflake?
So my role is, I work in the go-to-market team. I'm primarily focused on retail in North America. And as industry principals, really what our purview is to understand for Snowflake, what are the data trends happening in the industry? How can Snowflake really make a difference in the retail and CPG industry from a data perspective, from a use case perspective, right. And really just like how do we make an impact and add value? Right.
So here at AWS, in fact, I made the joke that the data conversation keynote is happening right now.
It sure is.
and yes, we're boycotting. So, but there's a difference between just a tool and stuff that drives towards solutions. So let's talk about a little about that Snowflake differentiator. What makes Snowflake different than just some Aurora or something else?
Yeah, so Snowflake in and of itself is the data platform whose really like its value add is fundamentally in core infrastructure to be the place to create your one-stop shop for all of your data. And from that is where organizations are now beginning to realize the value of pulling together data from disparate sources and allowing that to drive contextual value towards business outcome. And so really at the core of Snowflake's value is really just being that infrastructure and then focusing more on, all of those differentiated value adds from a use case perspective that we can light up.
Right. Super. So that's amazing. And I love the fact that you're talking about not just how do I get all my data into one place and have it architected and have it be governed and all that stuff, but contextual implementation as well, which becomes so important because just knowing a data point either can have value or it can actually be really distracting.
Correct.
So how does Snowflake help in that?
So with the core infrastructure of Snowflake, we're cross-cloud. And as a result, we can bring in any data source into Snowflake and ultimately relate that, aggregate it at whatever level needs, whatever the right level for aggregation is, and then create insight and value from that. And as a result, Snowflake being the kind of core platform for that, the partnerships that we've created, whether it be in data services, our really, really powerful SI partners, and, being on, platforms and cloud bases like AWS has really been it allows for organizations to light up data across, kind of across the entire organization.
Yeah. So you're using a couple of words, and I want to dig into them. First of all, you talk about the partnerships that you have with the cloud providers and with just raw infrastructure, but then you also use the term partners. Rackspace is a partner of Snowflake.
Yep.
A happy partner of Snowflake.
Happy.
And so tell me about how partners then fit into the whole mix.
So from a from a retail perspective, we have a couple type of partners. We have our strategic partners that are our integrators and implementers of the technology. We have organizations that we call our powered by, who are building solutions on top of Snowflake to really light up specific use cases across the retail ecosystem and really our entire industry ecosystem. And then, we have partners who are really building into the technology in and of itself from an infrastructure perspective. So we have a wide variety of organizations that we partner with, kind of across the board.
Right. So folks who are building solutions on top of your capabilities, as well as those like in a Rackspace context, where we're helping companies implement that.
Correct.
And get the true value out of what the technology brings.
Yep.
Well, let's talk retail a little bit more. So Snowflake fits in everything. If it's got data, Snowflake can be there and drive value. But let's talk about some use cases in and around retail.
Yeah. So we spend a lot of our time talking about data in and of itself, and those use cases are in three kind of major buckets. Yeah. First and foremost is in retail, especially, is customer. Customer data, understanding who our customer is, understanding how to actually bring contextual information to that subset of customer information, so that brands can light up, across the customer experience. Yeah. Secondarily, we talk a lot about supply chain, which is inevitably a problem in the world today,
in every industry,
macro, economic world today, and that's both making sure that inventory is on shelf, and making sure that we understand kind of that supply chain journey is what I really call it, but also, how do we get the right product to the right place where the customer is actually going to buy it, and really, building that omni-channel experience is really important, in retail specifically, and so that's where kind of having that core data platform where all of that data can get pulled and add value across the board is becoming really important. So those use cases, those two those are big buckets, but those are really what I spend a lot of time talking about.
And you are out talking to customers and pre-customers and all the time in this space. You're talking to folks like me about how Snowflake is making a difference in this specific industry. Now, you were a customer before you were an employee.
I was. And
without divulging too much, but how was Snowflake an important part of that company's life?
In my past life, I was really responsible for building the Snowflake ecosystem at the organization that I came from, and it really started as we wanted to be cloud enabled, and we wanted to move towards a broad view of our organizational ecosystem from a data perspective. Yeah. And we started with a small chunk of information. We started small and kind of grew more broadly, but as on the outset of that, as a result, we built retail data reporting and driving insights for all of the retail stores at that organization. We built customer data in a CDP type of format to really understand how to build loyalty, and then ultimately drive towards a more experiential experience seems right. Yep. But their focus then turned into building a more experiential brand, and so having kind of that core platform set up has really lit them up for the future to expand more globally, understand their supply chain in a end-to-end sort of way, and then ultimately drive towards their brand and their customer experience, which is their brand's focus, no matter what. So
now as you tell the story, they're many years into that journey, and so we're hearing this grand stuff, like they're how they're doing stuff globally and managing stores and all of the things. But the journey in data is one that can, at the beginning, a lot of executives don't get it. They think it's a magic switch. They don't know what to expect. What does a data journey in retail tend to look like? What are there any common first use cases that you see?
There are, a lot of the organizations that we work with who are just making that first step really start at that. We want to get all of our data in one place,
Yeah.
and then move towards a more personalization type of mentality. Like their focus is on, lighting up marketing use cases, driving towards personalization, and just getting core reporting in place.
So data aggregation together, better reports, and maybe help with some personalization.
Yeah, we want to reach our customers better.
And that's what I hear a lot as well, because those are some of the things that the executives are been looking for. They've been looking for, can I one, have that report that gives me the holistic view, and can I have it today and not at the end of some batch cycle?
Yep. And how does that relate to ultimately conversion towards, conversion
Now
of customer?
can we make some money with it?
Let's make money. And, a lot of organizations start there, and we're now getting to the point where on the other side of that, we're starting to talk more about how do we monetize our data? How do we actually make money from the data that we have? How do we invest in more kind of on-edge technologies like live commerce, and last mile delivery, which is taken an uptick in the middle of our the last 2 years of COVID. And so there's new technologies that have popped up and innovations that have popped up that now organizations on the other side of that are really trying to take advantage of.
Now, you use a phrase in there that I've been guilty of using a lot, because it can be one of those that sounds great, but it's really hard to realize, and that is monetizing data.
Yep.
Because a lot of consultants will come in and they'll say, if we get your data story together, you can monetize your data. So specifically, when we talk about that in retail, what does that look like?
So at this point, a lot of organizations are just trying to figure out where the use cases are, where organizations are going to want to spend money. And so we see that from and we see that in a broad swipe of interest, from monetizing customer data, retail media, and monetizing cross both media in the retail space is now becoming a very large topic of conversation. We're seeing monetization from CPG to retailer and back, wanting to monetize inventory or sales data. Inevitably, demographic data is a large part of the conversation. Just now that customer data is being regulated a little bit further with the deprecation of first-party cookie or third-party cookies, et cetera, like customers are trying to figure out, how do we actually retain and then enhance the customer information by whatever means that they can.
Yeah.
And so, we are, deep in the weeds of a lot of those conversations, and really trying to help retailers understand what that looks like on the Snowflake platform.
Very good. So, well, I'm glad we're bringing it back to Snowflake, because all this conversation, really does drive towards, can be very generic on any data platform. But when we think about monetizing data, a lot of time that comes from, one, how do we bring it back together? How do we understand what we have? And then how do we enrich it? How does the Snowflake platform help with that?
So one of the things that Snowflake is really made a strong investment in the last, I'd say, 2 years, is in data sharing and in our data marketplace. And so we have a marketplace for data assets, for data products, and that really offers the ability to have easy access to other data assets, if you're willing to buy them or subscribe to them. And so Snowflake's really out there trying to make it easier to have access to both organization to organization data sharing opportunity, but also a lot of those data assets that most organizations typically buy from in a third party sort of way. Snowflake's really investing in making that easier to access.
Now they can find it in the marketplace.
Correct.
And do you see, of course, there are going to be third party providers who are going to come in and make that available so that other retailers can then go get it. But are you seeing retailer to retailer either sharing or monetization of that data?
I am. And, retailer to retailer and retailer to CPGs, that conversation was never really a thing 5-10 years ago. And now, with data access being easier and data being more critical as a operating part of a business, retailers are beginning to want to have that conversation and really operate like it's a better together type of story. And so, we're seeing a lot of retailers reach out saying, hey, we are already doing business with these other retailers. Can we share data via the Snowflake platform so the data is accessible in real time, and it's we're not having to operate all of the pipelines and all of those kind of typical heavy lifts that have been part of the data, just a general data infrastructure is now really being moved towards more of a direct data share type of opportunity. And so we're seeing that conversation all over the place. We spend a lot of time there.
That's great. Now, so we're 3 days into AWS.
We are.
Have you been to any of the keynotes? Have you learned some things that are interesting?
I have. I went to a couple of sessions about, digital transformation. How AWS is partnering kind of cross partnerships. And really kind of the moves that they're making in the data space. And I'm really excited about a lot of the digital transformation, the data transformation conversations that are happening. As a data nerd myself, one of the things that I heard is a motto that I have that I kind of preach back to some of the organizations, which is data is actually easy. It's the people and the processes that are really challenging. And if you're putting in proper, transformational conversations with regards to teaching people about data and how to use data, it's going to make your lives a lot harder in your data transformation journey. And so knowing that conversation is happening at reInvent is really exciting for me as somebody who has kind of lived that journey now multiple times.
Yeah. So we're at a point, and I've noticed this in a lot of the announcements, is that we're not, it's not the old, hey, let's migrate into AWS, but it's that higher level, or in some cases lower level, transformational things of, okay, now that we're here, how do we actually drive some really significant value out of it? And that's one of the things I think the Snowflake platform really does well, is it brings together the data conversation inside of organizations, as opposed to, and I've seen it even, I shouldn't say this, even inside of our organization. You'll have well-meaning, we call it Rackspace, we call ourselves Rackers, well-meaning Rackers who will be arguing about a situation, both with their data in hand and ready to go to the mat because they've got their data, but they have two different data sources. And maybe the definitions are even a little bit different about that. But now with the Snowflake platform, with people actually being more data literate, we're not just waiting on the analysts to come in, but actual business folks are making decisions with that data. They're parsing that data and looking at those reports and driving those requirements for those that businesses are now really starting to, those that take data seriously are moving at a faster pace because of the fact that they have a common data language. I don't want to put any technology inside of their data platform, data mart, data whatever. But because it's defined, because it's in one place, because they have the right tools, they're now able to be not just data literate, but data fluent in their...
The other thing that I'd add is they're starting to move towards what I jokingly say, like they're actually doing their jobs versus spending all of their time in the data, like trying to munch it to make sense to then subsequently do their jobs. I'm seeing marketers beginning to, activate on their marketing campaigns versus spending all of the time just trying to figure out how to get customer data from point A to point B, and then have it like that conversation shifting to actually being able to light up organizational value versus spending all of the time in the weeds. Just trying to make the data make sense is exciting to not only be a part of, but it's also like that's the transformational journey that we're now seeing, which is amazing within the organization. And they're starting to ask for it. It's not just somebody coming in driving the data change. Those people are starting to ask for, hey, we want these tools. Hey, we want Snowflake. Hey, and they're beginning to be a part of the conversation, which is fun.
And that's the whole goal of all of this. I mean, we're techies, so we get excited about the technology, but what really gets exciting is when through the transformation, these folks who are brilliant and were hired for a purpose can now do their job as
can
opposed
actually
to
do their
monkey.
jobs,
Can
which
actually
is
do
super
their
fun.
job.
And for the record, like, it lights them up. Like,
Yeah.
that's actually what we want these people to be doing, because that's where they get super excited about their jobs. And so
Yeah.
it changes culture. It changes not only the data culture, but it changes the culture of the organization.
So with Snowflake, people are happier, culture is better, and the skies are not cloudy all day.
Yeah.
Yeah, something
I mean,
like that.
you know, snow requires cloud, but you know, there's
Oh, yeah,
that
that's true,
bad
that's true.
joke, which
Bad joke.
inevitably at
Well,
8:30 in the morning is going to happen.
It's about what you're going to get. Leslie, thank you so much for being on the program today. This was
Absolutely.
great.
Pleasure.
Folks, you can find her on LinkedIn. You can find her in all those places. And we will be back, I'm sure, more from here live from reInvent. Thank you so much for being a part of the program. As I've looked through the folks who checked in, of course, all over Texas, all over I've seen Europe, I've seen India, I've seen all over. So thank you so much for being a part of the program today. If you ever want to get a hold of us, it's as easy as sending an email to solve, that's our thought leadership program here at Rackspace, solve@rackspace.com. And come to the whole production team, and we'll be happy to get right back with you. So I hope you have an amazing day. We are about to head out into whatever else is happening here at reInvent. We'll go learn some more things, and we'll be back shortly. So have an amazing day, everybody. Thanks for being with us here this morning.